We've got a lively audience tonight. I like it. Good evening. Please remain standing. My name is Andy Martiri, headmaster, and on behalf of the students, faculty and staff, and Board of Trustees of the Kinkaid School, I am pleased to welcome parents, relatives, students, friends, alumni, and distinguished guests to this graduation ceremony for the class of 2016. The invocation will be delivered by Senior Class President Culver Stedman. While at Kinkaid, Culver has served as Vice President of the Young Republicans Club, Yell Leader, and lacrosse team captain. A Kinkaid lifer, Culver was also a valuable member of our technical theater program for all 4 years of high school, serving as a 2-year member of the Fine Arts Leadership Board and earning the Technical Theater Award on Honor Day this year. Please remain standing while Culver is finished, as the senior members of the concert choir will lead us in the singing of Kinkaid, My Own Kinkaid. Culver Stedman.
Fellow graduates, faculty, staff, parents, family, and friends of Kinkaid, good evening and welcome to the commencement ceremony of 2016. On behalf of the class of 2016, I would like to thank you for your attendance and support of these graduates. I would also like to thank each of you in the audience for making this day possible. To our teachers who have shaped our lives much more than just academically, to our deans who have been there for the entirety of high school and guided us through the college process with helpful advice, and to our parents whose unconditional love never ceased to comfort us. Because of you all, we sit on this stage. Let us pray. Thank you for enabling these graduates to strive through life's challenges safely with health, love, and support. We pray that you continue to guide us through the light and the dark, through the highs and the lows, the good times and the bad times. Please bless the class of 2016 as we embark on our journey beyond Kinkaid and surround each of us with those who care and love us. Let us be humble, compassionate, and understanding as we move through life. May it be filled with mistakes that make us better and successes that remind us why hard work is ultimately worth it. Amen.
The Ivy Guard may now retire. The senior members of the concert choir may take their places. Thank you very much, concert choir. Everyone may be seated. Thank you also, Culver Stedman. Again, I welcome you all to this graduation ceremony for the class of 2016 on this beautiful evening. Last school year, we had a monsoon on field day, and we were forced inside for graduation on the threat of rain. It didn't actually rain, but there was the threat of rain. This year, we had a picture-perfect field day and are outside again for graduation. Thank you, Mother Nature. And also, thank you to our new garage for providing even more shade. This has been quite a week for the class of 2016. The senior banquet, baccalaureate, the last set of final exams, upper school honor day, the senior dinner last night, and now graduation. The seniors are done. They have all completed and passed the course of study. Seniors, the leadership from your class has been truly outstanding all year long. It has been a real privilege for me to have 3 years with you at Kinkaid. I am genuinely grateful for you, proud of you, and we send you off to college with the school's love and very best wishes. Congratulations, senior class. I would like to now recognize several groups of people, and I will begin with the Board of Trustees, whose time, talent, and dedication make such a positive impact on our school. Ladies and gentlemen of the Board of Trustees, will you please stand and let us thank you? All faculty, staff, and administration, please stand. Faculty and staff, thank you very much. Thank you very much for your hard work, care, skill, and commitment. You helped us have a terrific year in all grade levels. You may be seated. In terms of this event tonight, I would like to especially thank our facilities department, the dean's office, Mr. Lambert in particular, and the upper school office for their tireless work in getting everything ready and looking so fantastic. Thank you very much. We really appreciate it. Parents, grandparents, family, and friends, I am not going to ask you to stand, but I am going to thank you sincerely on behalf of the faculty and staff for your significant partnership and strong support, and for always answering the call from Kinkaid, both in good times and in tough times, for your sons and daughters. Seniors, please join me in thanking your wonderful parents and family members. "35 members of the class of 2016 have attended Kinkaid since pre-kindergarten. These lifers are designated in the program with an asterisk. Lifers, please stand as a group and be recognized. Let's give them a round of applause. You may be seated. I would also like to recognize those students whose families have had a continuous relationship with Kinkaid of 20 years or more. I will call the name of each senior, the last to graduate for this family, give you the number of years of continued attendance, and then ask you to join me in expressing our appreciation for the group. Please stand as I call your name and remain standing. Jillian Bass, 22 years. Will Atnip, 23 years. Lauren Herring, 23 years. Mary Labanowski, 31 years. You may be seated. 30 members of the class of 2016 have a parent or grandparent who graduated from Kinkaid or who attended Kinkaid for part of their education. I will call the name of each senior and his or her family member or members and ask that they all stand and be recognized. Please hold your applause until all are standing. Jillian Bass and her mother, Jackie Fair, class of 1984. Thompson Brown and his mother, Virginia Mary Thompson Brown, class of 1984. Lennox Butcher and her grandfather, Thad Hutchison. Virginia Kathriner and her mother, Jackie Goss Kathriner, class of 1981, and her father, Bill Catheriner, class of 1981. George Clark and his mother, Ashley Brunson Clark, class of 1987. Sarah Kate Cohn and her father, Chris Cohn, class of 1986. Charlotte DeMarini and her father, Morgan DeMarini, class of 1973. Connor Gilliam and his father, Graham Gilliam, class of 1978. Emily Grove and her late mother, Allison Hall Grove, class of 1980, and her stepmother, Charlotte Sunderland Grove, class of 1985. Lauren Herring and her mother, Laura Bird Herring, class of 1976, and her late father, Randy Herring. Lindsay Jacoby and her father, Lee Jacoby, class of 1986. Sydney Krantz and her mother, Missy Yellen Krantz, class of 1984. Mary Labanowski and her mother, Elizabeth Jacobs Labanowski, class of 1973. Blake Latimer and his father, Daniel Latimer, class of 1993. Jake Littman and his mother, Melissa Brower Littman, class of 1985. Caroline Orr and her mother, Gail Wolf Orr, class of 1981. Spencer Oster and his father, Mark Oster, class of 1983. Stuart Rady and his mother, Sally Radelet Rady, class of 1979. T. Reckling and his grandmother, Isla Winston Reckling. Rebecca Roth and her father, Andrew Roth, class of 1981. Will Roth and his father, Charles Roth, class of 1979. Jack Schutte and his father, John Schutte, class of 1982. Mary Caroline Schofield and her father, John Schofield, class of 1985. Davis Sheffield and his mother, Laura McMurray Sheffield, class of 1985. Lindsay Siff and her father, Todd Siff, class of 1985. Ryan Smith and his mother, Melissa O'Toole Smith, class of 1982. Louise Stevens and her mother, Annette Fabian Stevens, class of 1982. Emily Stone and her mother, Lisa Croswell Stone, class of 1983, and her grandmother, Emily Atwell Croswell, class of 1959, and her grandfather, Holcomb Croswell, class of 1958. Rhaegor Wagnon and his mother, Ellen Weingarten Wagnon, class of 1979. Connor Wood and his father, Todd Wood, class of 1988. Let's give them all a big round of applause. Please be seated. We also have a special recognition. We have a member of our faculty and staff, Annette Johnson, over here to my right. Annette's going to come on towards the podium a little bit. Annette is retiring after 32 years of service in our facilities department. Let's give Annette a big round of applause. You got a standing ovation, Annette. Thank you so much. I would also like to congratulate Byron Williams, 8th grade dean and middle school history teacher. Mr. Williams is the winner of the Columbiana Award for Excellence in Teaching at Kinkaid. He was honored at Middle School Honor Day earlier this week, and we want to congratulate him again this evening. Mr. Williams, please stand and be recognized. It is my privilege to introduce Mason Mings, who will speak on behalf of the class. Governing Council President, Mason entered Kinkaid in kindergarten. A National Merit Scholar, he challenged himself by enrolling in our most rigorous curriculum. Although he suffered multiple knee injuries, Mason still managed to give significant time to our athletic program by participating in football, wrestling, and lacrosse. In the fine arts, he appeared as Mowgli in the children's theater production of The Jungle Book. Mason has been very busy outside of school as well. He is an Eagle Scout who worked tirelessly to found and lead a newly formed pack in a local KIPP school. Please join me in welcoming Mason Mings to the podium. You're welcome. Need a water or anything?
Well, thank you, Dr. Martiri. You know, one of the many things our headmaster does well is introductions. Anytime anyone steps up to the podium after Dr. Martiri, the whole audience feels like they're not about to hear the next I Have a Dream speech. So I guess the pressure's on. I hope I don't disappoint. I'd like to start out by thanking everyone for coming and supporting us today as we take the next big step in our lives. In particular, I'd like to thank the teachers who have spent countless hours preparing, teaching, and grading. You have shaped our minds as well as our lives. And although we may not have said it often enough, we appreciate you. I'd like to thank the coaches and arts directors who gave us a Kinkaid family outside of the classroom. You're on the fields and in the gyms with us through 100-degree heat and rain showers, and you often stayed late with us to perfect a scene or a song. So thank you. A huge thank you to all of our deans, wherever they are, because it's really because of you that we are going to such amazing colleges and universities. Thank you to Mr. Loach and Mr. Ramey for keeping our hall safe and me company in detention. Lastly, I'd like to thank the parents. Our parents really do so much for us. Not only have you kept us organized, picked up our slack, and encouraged us always, but you have shown us unconditional love, even during the times that we may not have deserved it. Although we will miss you next year, you will always be on our minds and in our hearts, because we all know that none of us could be sitting up here today without you. We love you. So today, on the very last night that all 139 members of the class of 2016 are ever together again, I'd like to talk about experience, specifically our experiences. Eventually, our daily proceedings here at Kinkaid will fade away. We might forget our schedules, where our locker was, or how we performed on tests. But as a class, we've experienced so much together. Experiences that have and are to become the memories we'll cherish forever. Watching the slideshow last weekend at the senior banquet, I noted that not a single picture had a student studying for a class or taking a test, not because academics aren't important, because they are, but rather because the pictures were meant to, the pictures were meant to invoke memories. Hold on, I'm lost. Give me a second. The pictures were meant to invoke memories, relive our experiences. Years from now, we'll remember hanging out on the baseball fields and in the dugouts during the football games in middle school, our historic 8th grade field day, the party we threw in the student center to kick off our final spring break. We'll remember the time Harrison swallowed a live goldfish, the day Mary Caroline Schofield won an election by giving a rap speech version of the hit song Friday, and the night Ryan Smith finally got to play in his first varsity basketball game. We'll remember the times that we lived in the moment. In the end, the tales might get taller and the stories might get wilder, but we'll always remember how we felt during our experiences and what those experiences taught us. Looking back, it won't be what we did that we feel an attachment to, but what happened. What we learned, who we met, how we felt. Ultimately, it is our experiences that cause us to grow, as those shared experiences brought us together in a way that nothing else really could. Now, unfortunately, all too often speeches like this have little impact. Many graduation speakers before me have stood up here and told their class to hold on or to stay changed by one another. And sometimes even people are so moved by such a speech that they really take to its message. But, after many experiences, we tell ourselves that we'll make changes to our lives. We'll learn from them. But just like our dad's New Year's resolutions to diet and exercise, they don't stick. So for example, I drive a whale for a truck. And early this year, in my usual rush to one Mr. Kleisa's chemistry class, I pulled in too closely to the car next to me, grazing its side. I left a note, talked to the owner of the car, and my mom paid for the damage. My mom wasn't too upset, but I told myself the next day I would wake up earlier. I wouldn't be in a hurry, I'd be more careful. And I was, for about a week. The next Friday, I was running equally late to my physics bonus period, and the same thing happened. I guarantee that Mama Mings was a little bit more upset about that one. While the story is funny in retrospect, the reality is that it is illustrative of something that we do as humans far more often than we should. We get lazy. We turn an experience, one that we should have learned from, into a story, one that we laugh at but don't learn because of. It's not that we forget the lessons that we learn, but rather that we let ourselves ignore them. Earlier this year, in my social issues English class, read a play, 6 Degrees of Separation by John Guare. In it, a stranger under the alias of Paul infiltrates the lives of two married art dealers, Wisa and Flan, posing as a friend of their daughter. Paul has an immense effect on both the lives of Wisa and Flan, causing them to be seemingly forever changed. But after Paul is arrested for robbery and murder, this change begins to seem less permanent. Seeing this, Wisa confronts Flan, and she says, "We turn him, Paul, into an anecdote to dine out on or to dine in on, but it was an experience. I will not turn him into an anecdote." How do we fit what happened to us into life without turning it into an anecdote with no teeth and a punchline you'll mouth over and over for years to come? Tell us a story about the time the imposter came into our lives, or that reminds me of the time this boy. And we become these human jukeboxes, spilling out these anecdotes. But it was an experience. How do we keep the experience? Guare's play presents several questions that we must ask ourselves as we prepare to set out on our lives. How do we live life for the experiences rather than for the stories we get to tell about them later? How do we prevent ourselves from shrinking back away from the growth we've undergone? But most importantly, it asks us to think about how we keep the experience. Life isn't about how impressive we seem at a cocktail party. It's not about the stories we accumulate. The stories unite us. But life is about going out each day and accumulating new experiences. Graduating today, let's allow and accept that we've been changed by this place and by each other. Let's move forward in our lives stronger and always connected in a way that's shaped by our experiences together. So I present today that there are two types of experiences, both worthy of being fully lived in the moment and appreciated in retrospection. There are the experiences meant to serve as anecdotes, links between friends, ties among a family. And we will always remember those aforementioned moments. Our historic 8th grade field day, Harrison swallowing the fish, and Mary Caroline's rap. But there are also profound experiences that we're meant to latch on to. Look at it as something more, something we should cherish, not just as a memory that brings us together, but as a catalyst for personal change. We've all heard our history teachers tell us that we study history to learn from its events. In English, we've all read literature in which characters have grown and learned from their experiences. So why can't we be those people in literature, the historical figures smart enough to be inspired by the experiences of the past? According to myth, Sir Isaac Newton was sat under a tree and was hit in the head by an apple. We've all heard the story, right? That was an experience. And it could have simply remained an anecdote to tell his friends. But what he did is he took that experience and he did something with it, grew from it. So let's remember how we pushed ourselves to not be the most unathletic grade to come through Kinkaid. Let's hold on to the way hairspray might have changed our perspective. For it's the education gained from our experiences that will take all 139 of us on to do great things. Years from now, I'll read that Rhett Cardwell has led the Rice Owls to be the best football team in the Conference USA. And I'll tell my friends about his great dance moves, or maybe the time he ate my cheese on the bus ride up to Dallas. But what I'll always be inspired by is the way he patiently but fervently came back from injury, and how he, without even knowing it, inspired me to do the same with my own. I'll read that Dr. Tarun Srinivasan is being heralded as the world's best research scientist. And I'll tell my friends about the time that I borrowed his pencil and he threatened to drive all the way to my house to come get it. But what I'll always be inspired by is our conversation last summer in which he explained his research to me and encouraged me to work harder towards my own academic dreams. When Ty Doran has replaced Matthew McConaughey as the Hollywood star in the next Lincoln commercial, I'll tell my friends about the time that we met in lower school and beat each other up with a plastic yellow bat. But what I'll always be inspired by is the way he stood by me in the rain while I grieved for my father and taught me to be proud of myself and happy in myself in the face of some of life's greatest adversities or failures. Guar asks us how we keep the experience. I think that our time together uniquely positions us to answer that question. Whether we met in Miss Lisa's red door, Miss Hayden's kindergarten class, or we came in time to take notes from Miss Cooney or sit through freshman decisions, we have grown both physically and emotionally together. We have become a family. And whether we move to Austin or Philadelphia, New York City or Australia, the ties that bind us will remain strong. Our Kinkaid experiences will live with us forever. They have propelled us to grow, and because of that, we will keep them. We will keep them here. We will keep them here. Each time one of you does something great, I'll think about our shared memories, and I'll always be moved by what you taught me and what we learned together. Our experiences first helped us grow into a family. Then, they helped us grow as a family. The truth is that I'll keep these experiences, and you will too, because we will always have 138 other people who know us, who care about us, and who love us. I love you, Kinkaid class of 2016. Thank you very much.
Good job, Mason. Good job, buddy. Mason, great job, man. Give me a hug. That was awesome, man. I'm really proud of you. Great job. Great job. No disrespect intended to other student speakers that I've heard, but Mason, that's the best student speech I've ever heard. That was fantastic. Joe, you got a tough act to follow, my friend. Man, wow. It's now my pleasure to introduce our board chair, Dr. Linda Andrews, who will introduce our graduation speaker. Dr. Andrews is a psychiatrist and the Senior Associate Dean for Graduate Medical Education at Baylor College of Medicine. Her oversight responsibilities include 94 accredited residency and fellowship training programs and over 1,400 residents and fellows working and training across 8 hospitals within the Texas Medical Center and almost 50 additional clinical sites in and around Houston. Dr. Andrews has been a member of the Baylor College of Medicine faculty since 1993, during which time she has received numerous teaching awards with areas of teaching expertise in psychotherapy, professionalism, and leadership. She has served and held leadership positions in several national accreditation organizations for both psychiatry and medical education. Dr. Andrews completed her undergraduate education at Duke University, her medical education at the University of Oklahoma, and her residency in psychiatry at Baylor College of Medicine. Her daughters, Georgie and Frances, were lifers at Kinkaid and graduated in 2014 and 15, respectively. Dr. Andrews has served on the board since 2004 and is just completing her first year of a 3-year term as board chair. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Linda Andrews.
Thank you, Andy. It is my distinct pleasure and honor to introduce this year's graduation speaker, Mr. Joe Ehrman. Mr. Ehrman was an All-American football player and named to Syracuse University's All-Century team. He also lettered in lacrosse and received the university's most distinguished alumni honor for contributions to society. Mr. Ehrman played professional football for 13 years and was named the Baltimore Colts Man of the Year. Parade magazine named him the most important coach in America. and he was also named as one of the 100 most influential sports educators in America. He wrote the book Inside Out Coaching: How Sports Can Transform Lives, and he was the subject of the New York Times bestseller Season of Life: A Football Star, a Boy, a Journey to Manhood. Among his many other awards, the Baltimore Business Journal selected him as the Renaissance Person of the Decade for his dedication and commitment to Baltimore City's betterment. He was also named the National Fatherhood Initiative's Man of the Year and the Frederick Douglass National Man of the Year for his work empowering youth to prevent rape and other forms of male violence. Mr. Ehrman and his wife are co-founders of both Coach for America, an organization committed to reframing the social responsibility of coaches and sports, and The Door, a community-based organization that addresses issues of poverty, racism, and social justice. Mr. Ehrman and his wife have been married for 35 years, and they have 4 children and 2 grandchildren. Everyone in my family loved reading the book Season of Life, and some of you may even remember, as my daughters both do with great fondness, when Mr. Ehrman spoke at Kinkaid a number of years ago. In my opinion, Mr. Ehrman has done with his life what we all hope to do with our lives and what we hope that our children will do with their lives. He has worked extremely hard to use his given talents to their fullest ability, but not necessarily only for personal success, but more importantly, to serve others. I'm honored to introduce Mr. Joe Ehrman, and I look forward to his comments for the graduates.
Well, thank you very much, and let me say what a pleasure it is to be here. I want to congratulate family, friends, faculty, congratulate each and every one of you for this next step in your own personal journey. I'm particularly thrilled to be here with Andy Martiri and Assistant Headmaster Ed Trusty, both of whom I had the privilege of coaching with about 15 years ago, and I call them both friends. Ed Trusty taught both of my boys in 4th grade, I think it was, and to this day they would say he's the most transformational teacher they've ever had. But I'm most pleased to be here with you, the hope for the future. And I would say this to each and every one of you individually and personally: you are signs of hope. You are signs of hope not only for your family, your community, this city, and America as well. And the function of hope is to always keep present realities open for future possibilities. We live in a world where tremendous numbers of people need to know that tomorrow can be different from today. And based on your education, based on your family support, you'll not only be signs of hope, but agents of hope as well. I couldn't help think of my own high school graduation tonight, 1967, right at the convergence of the civil rights movement, the women's rights movement, the war on poverty, and all of the questions surrounding the Vietnam War. And I think as a nation, we started to ask all the right questions. What is the role of race and class and gender and sexual orientation as it speaks to the inherent value and worth of every human being? I think America started to ask these questions earnestly over 50 years ago, but they still haven't been answered. We still live in a world filled with racism and sexism and all kinds of isms that marginalize and minimalize other human beings. And I think it's going to be under your leadership, your generation, that's going to help move America to a more fair, more inclusive, more just society, a society where every man, woman, and child can live with dignity and status and have an opportunity to participate in America. But I think your greatest challenge is that each of you, as you leave this nurturing community, each of you has to have your own self-definition of who you are. Each of you are going to have to answer the questions as you start matriculating in college. Who am I? What do I stand for? Who do I stand with? And what do I stand against? And I think it's going to be your character that's going to help you to answer those questions. Now, character is an old Greek word. It means to mark, scratch, engrave. And when that silversmith created that beautiful silver chalice, they would take that, turn it over, and put their character on there, so everyone would know who made that. In the same way, your family, this faculty, has been etching and carving and engraving on each and every one of you. And your challenge, again, as you leave this nurturing community, you have to take your own etching tools. You have to continue to grow and develop in your own character. Your character is going to determine your behavior, and your behavior is going to demonstrate your character. And character is not something that's hardwired. We call them traits, but they're really skills. And I think your challenge is to understand how to grow in your own foundation of your own moral and ethical character. Now, character has two types. One, there's a performance character. That has to do with your relationship to yourself. So things like dedication, perseverance, grit, that's maximizing your own human potential. The other kind of character is moral character. That has to do with relationship with others. And I would say foundational to the hope of this society, the hope of the future, is that each and every one of you develop your own moral character. And I would say foundational is the moral character skills of empathy, the ability to understand what other people are feeling and what causes those feelings. And then the second foundation would be moral courage. That's the courage to speak out of your own convictions, your own truth, in spite of your own fear. To stand up, to speak out, to show up on what you truly believe for each and every one of you. But you have to define yourself. And each of every one of you are going to have to define what your own definition of what it means to be a man, what it means to be a woman. Let me say this about this culture. You've all been given all kinds of misinformation, not only about your own value and worth, but perhaps that person sitting next to you. See, I think every boy in America has had to self-define their own masculinity. Every boy in this country has been given this mandate to be a man. And it's almost always in the context of stop acting that way. Stop with the tears, stop with the emotions, don't be a mama's boy, some kind of sissy, be a man. And what young boys do at a very early age in America, they start to separate their hearts from their head, trying to live life up. And then this culture gives every boy three fundamental lies about what it means to be a man. The first one you learned by the time you were 7, 8 years old on ball fields and playground. And that is, as a culture, you were taught that what it means to be a man had something to do with athletic ability. Somehow we associate masculinity in America with size or strength or some kind of skill set that allows you to compete on that playground. And what I want to say is that is an absolute lie. Being a man doesn't have a single thing to do with athletic ability. Some of you were the boys that had other interests. You were pushed to the periphery of the playground. And I want you to know that has not a single thing to do with your own essence of who and what you are as men. Second lie every boy receives in this culture by the time they're in junior high school is that we associate masculinity with issues of sexual conquest. What does it mean to be a man in too many parts of America? It means you have the capacity to bring some young girl alongside you and then use her. Use her for physical gratification or to validate some masculine insecurity. That certainly doesn't make you a man. That makes you a user of other human beings. And later on, you get the third lie in this culture about being a man. And that is we associate masculinity with issues of economic success, as though you can measure what a man is based on his job title, position, power, the amount of possessions someone has accumulated. That, too, is a fundamental lie. The problem is we live in a culture where all kinds of men associate their self-worth with their net worth. See, I think every one of you has to define your own masculinity, and it ought to be built on some semblance of moral character as well as your performance character. And let me say this to the young women here. You, too, have been given all kinds of misinformation about your own femininity, your own value, your own worth. Every girl is given this mandate to be a woman. It's not as confrontational as boys receive, but every 5, 6-year-old girl checking out of every convenience store, every magazine cover, every music video is screaming at you to compare yourself with this cultural construct of femininity. And every girl in America is fed 3 fundamental lies about what it means to be a woman in this culture. And the first one is this. You learn this by the time you were 4 or 5 years old. And that is, in the culture, we teach young girls this myth of Prince Charming, that somehow worthy women will be rescued. That word worthy is always a code word. That if you're just thin enough and just pretty enough, there's some man that will come and sweep you off your feet and make your life complete. As though you as women don't have enough courage, enough conviction, enough fortitude to make your lives whatever you want them to become, apart from needing to be rescued by some man. Second lie every girl in America learns by the time she's 8, 9 years old. And that is, as a culture, we teach young girls that their value, their worth as a woman, as a human being, is somehow dependent on your beauty, body type, and size. Boy, that too is a fundamental lie. And then finally, by the time girls gets to high school, I think you'll face this when you get to college as well. Girls are under this tremendous pressure to abandon their authentic selves. Girls feel they have this polarity of choices. You can either be honest, authentic, and real with who and what you are, or you can choose to conform to that construct, to be loved, popular, and accepted. And whenever girls do that, that's when they begin to lose their own moral compass. The locus of control goes from internal into the hands of every people. So what does it mean to be a man? What does it mean to be a woman? I think there's only two criteria. Now, in my bio, I'm seminary trained. I was ordained in 1985. And in my faith tradition, part of my job is to sit on the deathbed of dying people and help prepare them for the next stage of life, if you will. And here's what I know to be true for me, and I know to be true for every single one of you. If you were on your deathbed today, about to die tomorrow, you wanted to measure what kind of man, what kind of woman, what kind of success you had in life, it comes down to two things. And the first is this. On that deathbed, you'll recognize that all of life is about relationships. It's about the capacity to love and to be loved. And the questions you're going to ask at the end of your life aren't about power, possession, prestige. They're all going to be questions of relationships. What kind of mother was I? What kind of father? What kind of husband, what kind of wife, what kind of partner, what kind of son, what kind of daughter, what kind of member of the community was I? Who did I love and who did I allow to love me? See, I think your masculinity and femininity, your own self-concept, your self-identity emanates from the heart. It's the heart that's a source of empathy. It's the heart that allows you to love and to be loved, to connect with other people. It's the heart that you've got to keep open. And your challenge is continue to grow and nurture your own heart so you can grow and nurture the hearts of those you're connected to. And here's the second thing. Again, on your deathbed today, about to die tomorrow, measure what kind of man, what kind of woman, and come down to this. At the end of your life, you want to be able to look back over and know that you made a difference in this world, that all of us have a responsibility to give back. All of us have this responsibility to help build a more fair, just, inclusive society. And at the end of your life, you want to make sure that you've lived a life with some kind of cause bigger than who and what you are. It's all about relationships. It's all about cause. Relationships emanate from the heart. Cause emanates from your own moral courage. And your challenge is to continue to etch and grow. So I would challenge you as a class of 2016, you need to stand up out of your own essence, however God wired you. You need to live out of your own sense of who and what you are, out of your own self-definition. And then you need to stand up, you need to show up, and you need to speak out on behalf of other human beings. Thank you very much.
I don't know that anyone is going to accept our offer to be a graduation speaker next year. With Kirby John Caldwell last year and Joe Ehrman this year, there's going to be a lot of hang-ups next year. Thank you, Joe, for those inspirational words. You are truly a remarkable person, and we appreciate your message. I think that everyone has their own Mount Rushmore of people that they look up to and admire, and Joe Ehrman is on my personal Mount Rushmore. My father was one of the Baltimore Colts team doctors in the 1970s and early 80s, and I've had the pleasure of knowing Joe Ehrman since I was a boy, tagging along with my dad at Colts training camp. As Joe said, although Joe didn't have the privilege of coaching with Ed Trusty and me, we had the privilege of coaching with Joe Ehrman, and we got to hear Joe talk like that every day. How lucky were we? I can attest that his character is unmatched, and he is just a tremendous force of good all across this country. And graduates, I hope you really took what Coach Ehrman said to heart and that you live your life by the precepts he mentioned. Let's give another round of applause for Joe Ehrman. We look forward to having him back. We will now turn our attention to the presentation of three important awards, the Cooper Award and the Mr. and Mrs. Kinkaid Awards. These awards used to be given at Honor Day, but we moved them to graduation last year because of their prestige and significance. The Cooper Award. Mr. Chris Cam will join me on stage to help present the award. The Cam family helped establish this important award. Thank you very much, Mr. Cam, for your family's support. Appreciate it. Named in honor of Kinkaid's second headmaster, John Cooper, the Cooper Award is presented to that senior who best reflects the qualities of character Kinkaid has identified as central to its mission: respect, kindness, honesty, and responsibility. The recipient of the Cooper Award is that student who is honest and trustworthy, even when such behavior does not advance his or her interest, who respects the right of others to work toward their own advancement, delights in their successes, and is free of meanness of spirit, who respects the property of others, both intellectual and physical, who is generous to the point of sacrifice, who works to achieve his or her goals without the expectation of formal recognition, who enjoys the challenge of pure competition and is tenacious in determination, who possesses the courage to act in accordance with his or her deepest convictions, who seeks integrity and authenticity in his or her own life. This award includes a $2,500 cash award. A teacher of this year's Cooper Award winner wrote that this student, quote, may be the kindest student at Kinkaid. She is always quick with a laugh and words of praise for her classmates, unquote. It is a sentiment felt by all of us here. She lights up a class, not just through her contributions to discussions or her superior intellect, but also through her unquestionably high moral character. One coach writes, quote, what an absolute joy it was to have her on the team. Her integrity, warm sense of humor, work ethic, and drive for excellence allowed her to contribute to our success, unquote. A natural leader, she has had the opportunity to exercise those leadership muscles in a number of ways at Kinkaid, as the president of one of our clubs, an arts leadership board member, and as a peer mentor leader. During this year's all-school convocation, she spoke to all of us about respect, and it is with great respect that we award this year's Cooper Award to Jeel Mehta. Congratulations, Jeel. And thank you, Mr. Cam. The W.W. Kinkaid Award. This award, named to honor Mrs. Kinkaid's son, who served for some years as upper school principal, goes to the boy who best exemplifies the ideals of the school. As trite and unbelievable as it may sound, the winner of this year's Mr. Kinkaid Award has but one desire: to make the world a better place. He has, through thought and action, followed through with that goal in high school. Actively involved in our community service program, he created the Kinkaid Backyard program, bringing students from across the city to tour our outdoor classroom. Has run Kinkaid's interdivisional tutoring program for 2 years, led the World Update Club and served as a member of the World Affairs Council of Houston, and chaired this year's Community Service Council. Outside of service, he is a member of our orchestra, our Model UN team, and a peer mentor. Kinkaid and the greater Houston area are truly better places because of him. Please join me in congratulating Kaveh Badre. There we go. The Mrs. W.J. Kinkaid Award. This award, named in memory of the founder of our school, goes to the girl who best exemplifies the ideals of the school. The winner of this year's Mrs. Kinkaid Award has touched our school in so many ways while always upholding our core values. We have had the honor of watching this young lady cross many stages these past 4 years. From the Black Box and the Brown Auditorium, performing in children's theater productions and our spring musicals, to Honor Day assemblies and on to our athletic courts and fields, where we have watched her grit and determination, along with the leadership she has provided her teammates. There isn't a single area of our school that she has not touched. Intelligent, curious, genuine, and committed, she is grounded in generosity of spirit as she balances the high-wire challenges of life with discipline and delight, humility and confidence, contemplation and engagement. It is my great honor to present the Mrs. Kinkaid Award to Sarah Lassiter. Way to go. Great job. It is now my pleasure to introduce our head of upper school, Mr. Patrick Loach. I would like you to join me in a special thank you and round of applause for Mr. Loach, who after 5 years at Kinkaid is headed back to collegiate school in Richmond, where he will be head of their upper school. Mr. Loach, we are very grateful for all that you have done for the students, faculty, and staff, and we are thankful for your hard work, dedication, and the improvements that you help bring to the upper school, most notably the new academic schedule. We thank you and wish you and your family the very best in the years ahead. Mr. Loach. Thank you. Appreciate it. Need that?
I'm good. Oh, well, thank you. I don't know that I deserve that, especially following Mr. Ehrman and Mason's speech, because I'm not sure that my remarks will be so overwhelming that I'll deserve that afterward. I want to thank everyone for coming. I will share that earlier today, following our rehearsal and at lunch, Mason and I were talking about public speaking and about being a little bit nervous about coming and giving this speech. And I said to Mason, well, Mason, yeah, it's pretty tough talking in front of a few thousand people. And then I put my arm on him. I said, but you'll be fine. And then as Mason walked away, it struck me that was particularly unhelpful advice. So, Mason, you did a great job despite of that. And I know that Ms. Thornton, whose car you struck, and Ms. Miller, and Madame Murdoch, and Mr. Kleiza, whose classes you might have been late to or perhaps even forgotten to attend the last few weeks, I know they very much forgive you after really very inspiring remarks. So I want to offer my warm welcome to friends and to family and to relatives who have traveled. You may know that even if you're not from Houston, that we've experienced a little bit of rain in the recent weeks. That's probably an understatement. It's been sort of in biblical proportions. And so I really am grateful for a wonderful night. I know our facility staff, who is amazing, would have built an ark had we asked it for graduation here. But thankfully, Mr. Lambert was able to order up wonderful weather for commencement. So this is my final year, my 5th year at Kinkaid, which means my first group of Kinkaid seniors is actually in the midst of their own college graduation ceremonies this month. And we received the following message from the father of one of those very successful graduates. He writes, "A proud dad moment, but also a tip of the hat to the excellent preparation our daughter received at Kinkaid. There is no doubt in my mind that for those who put the time in, Kinkaid sends them to college as well prepared for the liberal arts as any school in the country. Our daughter is graduating Phi Beta Kappa and just also received this notice from one of her professors. Your thesis is an outstanding example of true scholarship that is both intellectually compelling and beautifully conceived. It was, moreover, masterfully written and a pleasure to read." It's not uncommon for Kinkaid students to find that kind of success when they leave. Seniors, I want you to know that success is where preparation and opportunity meet. Your faculty provided the preparation through their teaching and coaching excellence. Find the time and a way to say thank you if you haven't done so already. Your family provided the opportunity by sending you to one of the finest schools in the country. They too require your gratitude. The success, however, is yours. You've worked hard, you played hard, and you performed remarkably. For instance, this class once again brought home the SPC Director's Cup, an award that recognizes the school that has achieved the highest level of athletic success across all sports for the year. They overcame the hills and valleys to establish themselves as the best athletes in the SPC. There are 13 members of this class pursuing college athletics next year. This class was instrumental in staging a musical that received 10 Tommy Tune nominations, including scholarships for 3 of our seniors. There are 21 members of the class pursuing fine arts in college. This class gave over 1,000 hours of service and organized projects for the school that totaled almost 4,000 hours of community service. The mayor even named a day in honor of one of our seniors for her leadership in serving the community. Academically, this class received 219 merit-based scholarships totaling nearly $13 million, an impressive feat for the class of 2016. Now, in fairness, the class of 2016 did add some gray hairs to my head over the course of the years. I can recall English teacher Jean Alsop coming to my office one day during their freshman year, exasperated. Jean was a true Southern lady with impeccable manners and dress. Ms. Alsop said, "Mr. Loach, this class is driving me insane. They are going to force me to retire." I said, "But Jean, you are going to retire. You already told me so." She replied, "I know, but it may happen sooner than planned." And during their sophomore year, they invented 2 games that they played incessantly. One game called Pelt killed all the grass outside Mr. Vishek's room and potentially some brain cells. And the other, called What Are the Odds, may have permanently scarred the sophomore teachers. The library regressed to a primitive state, much like the island in Lord of the Flies. Finally, Mr. Connor and I invited the class to the amphitheater for a little sit-down. And thankfully, as Rhett Cardwell pointed out in his senior banquet speech, the class grew up and grew closer. One of the reasons I love to teach history is that it forces us to relate ourselves to the world rather than the world to us. For when you were born, you thought you were the center of the universe. And to your mothers, who can likely remember not being able to get away for more than a couple of hours, you were the center of their universe. However, as you have grown older and developed intellectually, you have learned that you are part of a wider world. That is a big and important part of growing up. And hopefully you can also appreciate that as a soon-to-be graduate of Kinkaid, you are part of a long and storied history, a history of more than 100 years. This evening, you will enter that history. That may sound final, but in fact, it is another beginning and another chance to add to the rich history of this school by the life that you lead. When you graduate, you will be a snapshot, a Polaroid in my mind and the minds of your faculty. One of my favorite things is to hear from my former students, see pictures of their weddings, read birth announcements, find out what career they are pursuing, or what wonderful things they are doing in their lives. Seniors, I hope you know how much I and the rest of the faculty care and believe in each of you. Your work this year has been an affirmation of the trust and respect we have for your class. Thank you. Good luck. Godspeed. Continue to make us proud, and come back and visit so we can update our snapshot.